They say heroes wear capes, but what if I told you this one wore a worn-out jacket and carried nothing but kindness? Stick around because this story will remind you why humanity still has hope. It was a bitterly cold winter evening in Chicago, with snow blanketing the city streets. An immigrant family, father, mother, and their 8-year-old daughter, found themselves stranded at a gas station on the outskirts of the city. Their car had broken down, and with limited English, no nearby friends, and barely enough money to call for a tow truck, they were at a loss. The little girl clutched her mother's hand tightly, her breath visible in the icy air. The father paced nervously, trying to figure out what to do next, but the family's desperation was invisible to the steady stream of drivers passing by. Then, out of nowhere, a stranger appeared. He was a tall man in his mid-50s with a scruffy beard and a warm, genuine smile. He had stopped for gas but noticed the family huddled near their car. "Need help?" he asked, his voice kind yet direct. The father hesitated, unsure whether to trust a stranger. Fear flickered in his eyes, and you can't blame him. After all, in a foreign land, who do you trust? But the man's persistence eventually convinced them to explain their predicament. The man introduced himself simply as Joe. He offered to take a look at their car, rolling up his sleeves despite the biting cold. After tinkering with the engine for a while, it became clear the vehicle needed professional repair. Joe didn't stop there. "Let's get you somewhere warm first," he said, waving them toward his pickup truck. The family hesitated again. The mother clutched her daughter protectively, but Joe softened the tension with a light chuckle. "I promise I'm not a kidnapper. My truck's not even nice enough for that," the little girl giggled, breaking the ice. Joe drove the family to a nearby diner and ordered them hot chocolate. Over steaming mugs, they shared their story in broken English. They were new to the country, having arrived just 3 months ago, and every penny they had was going toward making ends meet. The car breaking down was more than an inconvenience. It threatened their fragile livelihood. Joe listened intently, nodding, and occasionally cracking jokes to lighten the mood. But inside, he felt a tug, a sense of urgency to do more. When the family mentioned they couldn't afford the repairs, Joe leaned back in his chair and said, "Don't worry, I've got an idea. Trust me." The father raised an eyebrow. Was Joe serious, or was this just another empty promise? The next morning, Joe returned to the gas station with a mechanic friend in tow. Together, they towed the family's car to the mechanic's shop. Joe not only paid for the repairs but also filled their tank with gas. When the father tried to refuse, Joe put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Someday, you'll do the same for someone else. Pay it forward." The family couldn't hold back their tears. The little girl hugged Joe tightly, her small arms barely reaching around his waist. Through teary eyes, the father managed to say, "You hero." Joe laughed it off, saying, "Nah, I just like being a good neighbor." But as they drove away, the family couldn't help but feel like they had just met an angel in disguise. This story reminds us of something powerful. Kindness costs nothing, but can mean everything. In a world that often feels divided, small acts of humanity bridge the gaps and remind us of our shared connection. What Joe did wasn't grand in scale. It didn't make the news or go viral, but to that family, it was life-changing. Have you ever been in a moment where a stranger's kindness changed everything? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And if this video moved you, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories that inspire and uplift. Remember, you don't need a cape to be a hero, just a little courage and a big heart.